Mum Dem podcast.
By the Mum Dem?
For the Mum Dem.
But. So I guess I'm doing this bit. Hey,
We haven't had enough sleep.
Welcome back to the Mum Dem podcast. Today we have a guest, and I'm going to let our guest introduce herself.
A special guest.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Shakira. I specialise in women's health, pre- and postnatal exercise. I also talk a lot about mental well-being. For me, I really think like the mind and the body are so interconnected, and I definitely learned that lesson through motherhood. And I think I'm so passionate about health and well-being and exercise because it really helped me to manage the stressful elements of motherhood much better.
Yeah.
And Amma did some quick maths before the cameras began rolling and the mics began collecting audio. And between us, we have 13 children this sofa. So it was a lot. It was a lot to get onto these two sofas today.
Yes.
Lots of lunches to prepare.
Yeah, lunch boxes.
Lots of school runs.
Childcare, negotiating.
Childcare negotiations.
Oh my gosh,
That's-
school run negotiations. Please, if you do it today, I'll do it tomorrow.
There was literally no negotiation. I was like, I'm not here Friday. Like, I need to get
That's the way to do it.
It has to be you. I love that.
Yeah, and Shakira, I love that you're a twin mum, just like me.
Yeah.
Same kind of crazy pattern of two kids. And
Yeah,
then
you
suddenly,
were much calmer though. I met you in those early twin days, and you were so
No,
chill.
Rachel.
Oh my
hides
gosh,
her
I was
stress
not.
by
No,
really well done.
sorry.
Not hides it, sorry, as it presents. Because no, I do the same. People think I'm calm,
People
but I'm
think
not
you're
calm.
calm,
And the
yeah.
inside, I'm having a mental breakdown.
But I feel like
I don't project it.
I had a mental breakdown to you over Zoom, Shakira.
No, it
Do you not
wasn't.
remember?
No, you were great.
I was like, my life is
were
falling
great.
apart.
breakdown was great.
Your mental breakdown was great. No,
I thought it was embarrassing.
you were
I was
still
falling
quite
apart.
calm and
Was
together
I?
and rational. Like I wear my stress right out there.
So I
all
thought
to
I
see.
did. Maybe that's the power of prayer. I don't know actually what it is.
But I also think that's quite a good thing to be like, I need help.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I need help. Because I think
Yeah.
as mothers, we
you
can
get
be
help
quite,
when you're like
Yeah.
having a public breakdown.
It's so
Whereas-
funny. Because yesterday I was talking to a friend and she was saying like, "Oh, I'm really struggling asking people for help," and I was like, "That is something I have never struggled with."
Wow.
I will ask for help when I need it, and people always ask me like, "How do you balance a busy schedule? How do you work and do parenting and blah, blah, blah?" And I'm like, because I ask for help. Like I will say to people. Like today, I'm not here on Friday, so someone's going to have to catch the kids because it's not me, like, you know. But I will ask for help when I need it. I will go to my neighbour's house and be like, "Do you have some eggs? Because I forgot that I don't have eggs this morning," or whatever. You know.
Can
I
you
know
teach
that's-
us? How do you
Yeah,
do
please
that?
do.
'Cause that's
we need
hard.
lessons in asking for help.
We need
Yeah,
lessons.
I think
asking for help
most
now.
mums do.
Yeah, that's but it's good. It is important to ask.
No,
for
I'm
help,
actually
so.
serious. How do you get over that kind of awkward of, am I imposing? Are they gonna like say no and then it'll be awkward and damage the relationship, or are they gonna feel like they have to say yes and then I've pressured them, and all the like crazy
Or
that
you
goes
feel
on
like
in
you're
our
annoying
head.
and always asking.
Oh my gosh, I am always telling Amma that I'm like, I didn't ask you for help because I didn't want to be annoying and I'm so annoying.
Which is
And
actually
she's
more
like,
annoying. I'm
this
like,
is
you should
annoying.
have
You asked me for help.
Because then
You're not
there's more
generally
help that you have
annoying.
to give in the
Yeah.
end, because like you should have asked for help in the first place, because then things either escalate or you get worse, and then it's more.
But I think it's that. I think it's actually exactly that. Why I don't feel awkward asking for help, because I know what it is to need the help, and I actually love it when my friends come to me for something. I am sort of that person that people will confide in or open up to, and I actually really like that. I like connecting with people in that way, and so I don't mind being asked for help. And
There's an extra jump because the three of us, we are the compulsive helpers for sure.
Oh my
like
God.
we're the people who are always helping people.
Yeah.
But I think we share the trait that it is actually hard for us to ask for help. And I've noticed this with a lot of mums. So you probably don't realize this, but it's a superpower
I think
that you're
you do.
comfortable and confident asking for help. And you do it like graciously and beautifully.
Oh.
So we need the
I
secret.
mean, what I'm hearing is I now have 3 more people I can ask for help. That's what I took from that. Like,
Okay, we need to think like this, ladies.
Absolutely.
But I think we need to
great.
get onto our first question.
Let's
Oh,
do it.
sorry, this is me derailing the conversation. I didn't
that
have
is-
enough sleep.
Yeah, here we go. So we always ask about birth. I love birth stories.
Yeah.
And so
She's obsessed.
I wish I could hear all of your birth stories, but let's
Awful.
just do your oldest child's birth story. please.
sorry. Okay, so to be honest, wish you'd have asked about a different one, because actually I have to say, like, that first birth was brilliant, and all of my births actually were really good, but there were different, like, different things that occurred in the other ones where like it was super quick, or I wasn't prepared for this, or I had a cesarean, which I was really worried about with my twins. So there were loads of different challenges that I then sort of overcame in other ones. That first birth, and I think my whole experience of motherhood has been like different to what I expected it to be. And I'm sure everyone has that to a certain degree. But all I ever heard in pregnancy was, oh my gosh, labour. And I was panicking about labour. And I didn't really worry about anything else. I was thinking like, how am I going to get this out? And then actually the birth was great. But then I found so many other things a real struggle that I just hadn't been prepared for. The one thing I would say, I said I don't mind asking for help. Like, I knew straight up I want an epidural. And like, I remember in our NCT class beforehand, in our antenatal class beforehand, they were asking, okay, like here's some words, laminated words on a table. Put down words that make you feel, positive about birth. And people were like, candles, home, bath, holding my partner's hand. I was like, bright lights, machines, doctors, drugs. Like, I was like, that makes me feel safe. I can't imagine anything worse than having to be at home. Like, I need to be aware I need as many medical professionals in the room as possible. So I was really adamant, and like I set up a meeting. I think so often in pregnancy and then also in postpartum, you have to really like push for what you need. Yes. And it's a shame that it's not just more readily there, the support. But I was like, I need to have a meeting with the anaesthetist. I need to have the epidural. I don't want to arrive and someone go, why don't we try the breathing? No, I don't need it. So I met with the anaesthetist and I made him write in bright red letters on the front of my pregnancy notes, getting epidural, like starred it. And I came in my first pregnancy when I was in labour, and I was like, this is what I need. And they were like, how about the... No. I was like, read the red, okay? And straight away went in, like, I need to see. So everything was good because I really, I had really advocated for what I really want. And then, like I said, it was other areas that actually were tricky.
So can you tell us a bit more about that if you feel comfortable sharing?
The other areas that were...
Yeah, the tricky areas.
Struggled with, yeah. I think, like, the first thing that was such a shock to my system was breastfeeding. And it was not necessarily like the logistics, like the latch was great, he fed really well, I had loads of milk supply, all of that was great. But for me, the psychological impact of the demand of breastfeeding, and I remember I wrote an article and it was called Bullied into Breastfeeding. And I was like, because there, and I had wanted to breastfeed, but every time the baby went, someone was like, I think he's hungry. And I was like, oh, and that little like click sound of the nursing bra, I just hated the sound, all night, all day. And I felt, to me, like boobs had always been a sex thing. And now all of a sudden it was like, oh wait, now this is like my baby. And I just felt I just was not comfortable with that. And because it was so constant. And I think like when I'd had enough sleep and it was the daytime, I felt really brilliant, and I'm Mother Earth and I'm breastfeeding and I felt great. But then it would be late at night, my partner's asleep, and I'm up again, and that's when it really psychologically started to affect me. And I did want to keep breastfeeding, and I did, and I exclusively breastfed for about 6 months, and then I combination fed for the next year. But I just had not been prepared. And then if you fast forward, 6 years later, I have my twins, where the demand is double.
Oh my gosh.
But actually...
And there's two...
Yeah, exactly. And then you're feeding one, the other one's like, meh, and I'm like, I'm already doing it. But I actually found that a much more positive experience, and I literally think it was because I was prepared, and I knew, okay, there's going to be a demand to it, and I found that much more manageable.
And there's a mindset shift in seeing your breasts as mammary glands. You know, like we do live in a society in the UK where breasts are super sexualized. And you're right, it's such a hard thing to get over that, oh, these are for sex, and then no, they're for babies. And it just seems like you can't mix those two, even though that's how babies are made. It just feels like, but we don't talk about that. And there is this almost like prudishness around women's bodies. They have to be like these holy hallowed objects, the whole like Madonna or paradox, or therefore sex. And in a way, that mental leap, no one talks about it because it's awkward to even admit or say, but actually we're all kind of thinking like, these were for sex.
Yeah.
Now they're for babies, and there's so much demand on my body
Yeah.
in a different way. It feels like everyone wants something from me, and you get like touched out, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So I think it's really good you said that, because I'm sure so many people listening to the podcast are concerned about how do you get over that.
Yeah.
But actually, once you've done it, you no longer see your body in that way, and it almost like expands your self-view, right?
Even if I'd heard you say that to me before I experienced it, I'd be like, okay, now I know what I'm in for. But I just had no idea.
Of course.
And you spend so much time, again, in those antenatal classes talking about latch and how you can hold the baby and blah, blah, blah. But no one ever talked about that.
Yeah.
And I just really, really struggled.
That's why these conversations are so important, because I think even when you were talking about your birth and the fact that you were so adamant that you wanted your epidural, before you came on, we were having a bit of a conversation about like the controversial topics where, you know, where it's natural births and epidurals, and some people will frown upon, oh, you want a natural birth. Some people will frown upon, you want an epidural. But I think...
And everyone thinks, oh, so you don't care about your baby. You want to kill them or you want to drug them. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
we love our babies and we
but
love
I think,
ourselves.
Yeah, but I think having that kind of like advocating for yourself and knowing that that's not me. Like when you were talking about the picture, the words, being so confident and saying, that's not me. I don't want a water birth. I don't want this. That's okay. And I think just being confident and comfortable, being who you are and knowing what you want, advocating for that, pushing for that. More women need to hear that. More women need to know that you want to go in for an epidural. That is what you want. And that's a way to make, you found the experience quite beautiful. You loved your first birth.
Yeah.
I went into my first birth wanting an absolutely natural birth, ended up with a C-section, came out so traumatized, like so could have ended up in postnatal depression because of how traumatized I was. But that's because there's so much around like who you are as a person and sometimes trying to prove something to someone. Like, oh, I remember vividly the midwife saying to me and my husband, what are you trying to prove not getting an epidural? Because I was like, I don't want any drugs. I don't want that. And she was like, what are you trying to prove? You're here. You've been in labour for 50 hours. Yeah. You're exhausted. What are you trying to prove? And I was like, I don't know what I'm trying to prove. Like, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And it comes back to that, knowing what you want and asking for help. So
I also wonder whether, when you were just mentioning there about, you know, being sort of comfortable with who you are, what choices you want to make, what's right for you, that really, I think that can happen for a lot of people in motherhood because my eldest is almost 10, and I remember him saying to me about 3 years ago, he was saying to me, Mama, you know, there's some kids at school that really want to be cool, and then there's some kids who are just happy being who they are. And I was like, oh, okay, and he was in that group of happy being who he is. But I've now seen at 10, like, all those pressures are coming in, and now he's like, oh, right, well, I've got to learn to play football because it's like currency on the school playground. So now he's doing all these things that aren't naturally him. And I think like I got this real, like I felt really empowered to be like, I'm going to be exactly who I am because I need you to know that exactly who you are is enough. Yeah. And, you know, so I think sometimes we have that in motherhood where we see our children, we're like, oh my gosh, please don't pretend that you need to have this in order to fit in, because actually, you know, when you grow up, you'll realize how amazing it is to be different. But, you know, so I think that can
absolutely.
There's so much empowerment that comes from just owning who you naturally are, what you naturally like, your interests, your dislikes, all of that, having a really strong identity and kind of good boundaries around that in terms of what you spend your time on, what you don't. And that applies to the whole motherhood journey, how you give birth, how you feed your baby, how you transport your baby, but also to our kids. It's such a good point that we can set that example for our children if we do it for ourselves.
And then letting them as well be who they are. And if your child is someone that likes skiing or something random, it's not like,
I wish my kids like skiing.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's not for you, that's for them sort of thing. It's like letting them be who they are.
And they really do that. Like, I've got 3 boys and a girl, and my boys, actually, 2 of my eldest boys were always like, when they were really young, they used to wear dresses and sparkles, and now they've sort of like, you know, again, conformed to what they've picked up from society. But like, there's, you know, they're boys, and I'm not the most like feminine, like, you know, in that respect. My daughter is and she's one of the twins, one of the youngest ones. She is the stereotypical little girl. You know, everything is pink, unicorns. She wants to be nail varnished when she grows up.
Just like mine.
And my twins are the same. They're such girly girls. It's extreme. It's absurd. I'm like, you are
I'm not a girly girl. So the fact that she's turned out like that, I did everything. I was like,
she hates pink.
I hate pink. I'm like, you're only going to wear like neutral colours, and she's like glitter and pink and unicorns and rainbows.
And I was like, where has this come from?
It genuinely is concern. It's confusing because my twins, they're not even 2 yet. They're 2 in December, and they like are like getting little handbags and going around the house, and it can be like a paper bag, and they're putting things in. They're trying on everyone's shoes. I've got all these little videos where I catch them like, we're trying to leave the house. It takes like an extra 20 minutes to leave the house because they want to put on my heels. And then try and walk, and then they'll be there crying because they can't walk in my heels. Like, what? And I'm not even that much of a girly girl. I am a little bit, but not like that.
But that's why. But then I'm like, I look at her, and exactly like in my head, I'm like, no, we are shattering the stereotypes in this family. We are doing this. But I'm like, actually, do you know what? It is genuinely you. I'm gonna let you do you. So we're there, you know, nail varnish club and like all the things she wants to do. I'm like, okay, this is who you are. So
embrace it.
Exactly.
And that's going to make them more capable when they're older of owning who they are, asking for help, advocating for themselves. I think that is key.
That's so good.
Okay, so on to our next question. My favorite question. I love asking this. Motherhood is a journey. It's the hood sometimes.
It really is.
But what is like, your favorite thing about being a mum?
Favorite thing about being a mum? I mean, other than obviously, well, I'll tell you what it is actually, because I can combine the two. I was going to say, you know, I think the amazing thing like about motherhood is I have experienced like not just new emotions that I'd never experienced before, but new depths to emotions, like new ranges to emotion. You know, like I knew, you know, love's a really simple one. I knew what love was, but you know, being protective, I knew what being protective was, but
not like this.
Not like this. Like, you know, and I'm not even worried because I would destroy anything that came to my children. You know, literally.
It's scary for them. Like,
you
try and have my kids. I'm worried for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I'm really, all of those emotions is amazing. And I feel like I get to experience so much more out of life in general because I have these big ranges of emotions. And then obviously all the wonderful, you know, to scale it right back, these little things. I was standing in a public toilet with my son the other day, one of the twins, the youngest, and he looked at the floor and he was like, why are there diamonds on the floor? And I was like, what are you talking about? And you know, like that really cheap, see it at the train station, like black, like it's not even tarmac, I don't know what it is floor, but it's got like different little specks of, he's like, it's like diamonds. And I was like, I mean, we are in a public.
Yeah, like, this is the most disgusting thing.
And he found beauty.
He has found beauty in the nastiest place.
I can't believe I'm tearing up over the floors.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, it is amazing. It is amazing.
Oh
and like,
gosh,
as frustrating it is that my children don't understand urgency, because sometimes I've got someone to be. They slow you down. And like, I have a habit of being quite like, I love to do a million things and be really busy. And I'm sure you.
Welcome to the club.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And as difficult as it is to sometimes get on their level, I also love the fact that they get me on their level. Because that is actually real life. You know, the rest of it is just what we do.
I love that so much. I really do. That reminds me of the girls when I said to them, we'll go out to eat, we'll go out to dinner. And then, like you said, because I'm at 100 miles an hour, I'm like, we haven't got time. We had to go to IKEA as well. So we sat in IKEA and had some dinner. The girls were like, what a fancy restaurant. I mean, big up IKEA because like, but the girls were like, yes. And I was like, well, that's a win for me because now I know if I need a fancy restaurant, go to IKEA.
That's so funny because I haven't taken mine to IKEA, but I keep saying to them, there's a place you're going to love. It's called IKEA because I know they will go nuts. They will absolutely love all the little setups. I'm like, you guys wait till we go to IKEA one day.
It's just so beautiful, isn't it? It is beautiful. We had another mum that said something similar about like a stick and how it can be a wand and how it can be the witch's broom and all of it. Like, they are just children. They slow you down, but in a beautiful way. Like, absolutely.
For sure.
Next question.
Okay, so you have 4 beautiful children.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've received a wide range of advice at every stage. Some of it helpful, some of it not helpful. But I want you to think about the best piece of parenting advice that you've heard that you want to pass on to our listeners.
Okay, that's such an easy question for me because it literally changed my life. And I don't know if it will apply to everybody, but I had extreme anxiety, which developed into a really extreme OCD. And it was so bad. I mean, I'm a completely different person now. It was taking me 4 hours to get to bed. I had like tapping and counting, so I was that person, you know, stepping over the cracks in the road and counting, visibly distressed. Anyway, I think the biggest advice and the biggest change that I've ever had through my life is learning the difference between anxiety and instinct. And I found so often in motherhood it can be so closely related. You know, like if my children were sick, that was a trigger. I'd be really, really stressed about that. And like, where's this going to go? And I hated it when the doctors would be like, well, I think they're fine, but take them home and trust your instincts because you're the mum. And I'm like, but I'm already really anxious. I'm like, I've never had a temperature this high and the temperature's gone and now it's back and it's not responding to cow pollen. And I was panicking about everything. And then I met this like with this therapist. We were doing cognitive behavioural therapy, which is in effect talk therapy really. And he was basically describing to me the way that the brain works. He explained to me that the ability to worry is actually a really powerful human instinct because other animals can't necessarily perceive a danger. They like until it's right upon them. Yeah. We can be like, oh, actually that alleyway looks dark. Yeah, exactly. And so we can avoid loads of dangerous situations. And then like he was explaining to me how to really subtly tell the difference. And it used to take me a long time. I used to literally have to stand there and I'd think, okay, if I don't tap this 5 times, something bad's going to happen. And I'd have to stand there and just breathe and think, right, you know, and learn, actually, that's not my instinct. That's actually anxiety. Okay, leave that one. And now I don't have OCD at all anymore. But I really had to learn what was my true instinct telling me something and what was just sort of like that higher anxiety thing. And it can be difficult to do, but I think that's just, it changed my life.
So what was the main kind of thing in your head you were doing to distinguish between the two? So say if you had your child that had a temperature, what was the main thing you were doing to say, okay, this is just me, you know, my instinct, or this is me actually worrying? Like, was there something you did?
So, I mean, this is such a huge, we could probably do a whole podcast on just this, but like,
we'll have you back.
Happily. The thoughts do actually feel different. I know it's not helpful, but there is a different quality to it. And it is, you know, we went right back to the beginning where we're talking about being comfortable being yourself. Yeah. I was never slowing down. I hated being still. Yeah. And I was, and this is when I was saying to you how I said, you know, the body and the mind are so interconnected. The way that I really overcame my anxiety and learnt that difference is by learning to be calm in chaos. Like, you know, and on a real hormonal level, there are things that happen with our stress hormones. When we tense our muscles, we are triggering the release of cortisol in our body. Even if you feel stressed, if you can sit relaxed, if you can breathe slower, because when we breathe shallow and we have that shallow breathing, we're not stimulating the same hormone response in our gut when we shallow breathe as when we breathe really deeply. So if you can relax your body and take a few deep breaths, and like I said, it used to take me a long time, and then I would then be able to either feel that thought fade away, or I would recognize, okay, now I need to take action. And now, you know, I try to teach my children, when something stressful happens, like we're driving to school and you've realized you don't have your water bottle or you don't have whatever, my children will be like, and I'm like, listen, we have to action this, but we're going to do it calmly. So you don't have your water bottle, so we'll talk to the school and they can give you a cup. Or actually, I'm going to turn around, I'll get your water bottle and we'll bring it. But being able, and that's what I mean when I say it's changed my life, because in work, in relationships, in parenting, to be able to be calm amongst chaos is like, you know, a game changer. You can do it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's such.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, yes, okay. I'm seeing situations in my mind where I can be grounded, and I'm like, and I love the actual. Here comes my wording, not wording. But you actually physically, of actually like grounding yourself and being like, okay, I'm gonna be calm in this moment. And I was thinking yesterday, I was working, and then we have this flat that we're trying to sell, and it's just really stressful trying to sell it. And then we have a tenant in it who is just, there's been lots of back and forth about different things. So I was trying to do the admin of that whilst working, whilst figuring out who's picking up my child from school, because obviously I forgot to arrange that. And then I suddenly was like, oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed. Yeah. And then my husband was like, pray. And I'm like, I know I need to pray, but that's not helpful right now. He was like, okay, let's pray together. And I was like, okay, fine, let's sit down and pray together. And I was just thinking of actually in that moment of me just stopping and being like, okay, I'm going to be calm now, but and like holding on and then praying and then letting out and be like, okay, let me focus on one thing at a time and do this in a rational order. Yeah. But it just the motion of telling yourself, okay, I can be calm. And it's like, I think about like, this is what I'm trying to teach my daughter, to be calm when she's being frantic about whatever, and just how powerful it is to get into that calm mode.
You're bang on. And like you're talking about prayer, like I remember doing a lot of research around, I mean, this is slightly different because it was about digestion when you're eating dinner, but why people pray before they eat. And obviously there's a spiritual reason, but it also helps your body to calm. And so you can digest the food better when you're eating it, those few minutes of prayer. And like, amazing. I mean, we're not here to talk about religion, and obviously everyone has their own faith.
We're here for all of this.
So, okay, I'm not trying to impress my religious beliefs on anybody else, but that was also a huge part of my recovery for many reasons, but for one of the simplest reasons, because I had to learn, I said being calm in chaos. I had to learn that, like, I hated the idea of not being in control. And when you have children, there's only so much you're not in control. Because they're out there. And so I had to learn, like, I'm not in control. And when I learned to be okay with that, and for me, finding God was a really good way, or getting closer to God was a good way of doing that, because I recognized, okay, and with OCD, because my sister was like, so you telling me you think if you do that, you're going to overpower God? And I was like, actually, deep. I was like, I can't. Yeah. So I learned to, just be okay with that. Yeah. And that was also a big turning point. So I'm laughing my head because very quick story, but I was talking to my sister's friend about my anxiety, and I was like, well, I'm just really worried. And I started talking about Adam and Eve, and I was like, and then all this bad stuff happened, because of this whole Apple and whatever bad things. And my friend looked at me and she just went, she's American, and she was like, girl, she's like, Eve had one job. Okay? She's like, don't eat the fruit. She's like, girl, eat the fruit. And I was like, okay, so maybe my life's slightly different to like what Eve had going on. So okay, and it just helped to like, in all seriousness,
perspective, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She couldn't even do that.
Do you know what I mean? I was like, come on. She had one job.
Do you know what though? That's a random thing. As I get older, the more I understand this tale of temptation, because as a kid you're like, oh, she ate the fruit or ate the apple, whatever it is, and it doesn't make sense, and it's just like, that seems a bit mean and extreme as a response. And as I get older, especially having kids and having to discipline them, I'm like, okay, this concept of temptation, and all you have to do is don't eat the fruit. You can do everything else. Stay away from that one thing. Yeah. And if you fixate on, I'm not allowed this, or even, the snake coming along and being like, oh, well, you told you can't eat anything. That was not the rule. It was stay away from this, enjoy. Yeah. And with my kids, I try to give them quite, like, the boundaries are around danger or things that, like, could become danger, things that could be bad for them. But generally, they're free to be who they are. So we don't have many rules. We have, like, 4 house rules, and they're firm. And then we have, like, mantras and phrases and, like, is it safe? Is it kind? Is it respectful? That's pretty much like, if they do something, I ask them and they're like, it's kind, but it's not really safe. And then they talk themselves out of it. Good. But it's like, you can do everything, just don't do the things that are unsafe. And the way that I see them and they're thinking about it, and I realize I do this, like sometimes I want to make a bad decision. Yeah. I want to eat the fruit. I want to do the thing. And then it's just like, there are consequences. You have to learn to think about the consequences of your action. And it can be like, I'm trying to do gentle parenting and everything, but sometimes for kids. So sometimes I am vexed and the anger needs to come out of my body, and I want to tell my child about themselves. Yeah. Or I want to go tell my husband, look what you caused, you didn't listen to me. And I want to like release. And it's like, we laugh, but it's quite this ugly part of my character that I have these like explosive rages that want to come out. And I'm learning, I need to go punch a pillow. I need to go for a run. I need to go put on my VR mask and punch imaginary objects. I need to do something, because as tempting as that fruit is, like if I just yell and I'm like, you're not listening to me and and like, that, you can't take it back. The impact of that is, like you can repair, but you will have always, said the thing to your child that's damaging, or said the thing to your partner, to your husband, that you can't take back. So it's interesting you said that story, because I've been reflecting on it recently, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really want to eat the fruit in so many areas of my life.
And I think also what's so difficult with children with that in respect to that, because I have that as well. Like, I tried gentle parenting for 3 days, and I listened to me. Like,
3 days?
Yeah, no. But what I recognise is like, because I will get really angry and really overstimulated, and then I'm like, bah, bah, bah.
It's that they're so loud.
They're so loud, exactly. So loud. But now I notice my 10-year-old, the littlest thing, and he goes, brr, and I'm trying to explain to him. I always say to him, you don't have the pressures. You've not got everything I've got, so you can't go from 0 to 100 because I'm already at 90 and then I'm at 100. You're 0 to 100. But kids don't see that.
Yeah.
No, they don't see. All they see is that
big
do not
exactly feels 100 to them.
Yeah, and so I'm like, actually, I have to take responsibility for that because I am showing you 100.
Yeah,
and even if I feel I'm up there, I have got to find a way to show you another way because you can't see the journey. You're just seeing the result. So I definitely hear that. I need to write down those 3 words. I'm like, is it safe? Is it respectful? No.
They really understand it, even at a young age. Like 3-4-year-olds, they can understand safe, respectful,
I'm not sure
kind.
Asha will care, but I will try it.
I mean,
You
if they
say that,
care,
try
kind
it.
of thing, but
But when you call them out on it, when you come to them with it, if I'm like, that's not safe, they don't care. If I'm like, I'm pulling you aside and it's just 1-to-1, do you think this behavior is safe? Do you think it's respectful? Do you think it's kind? They know, and they'll come up with all this deep stuff. And it's like one of my kids said to me, it wasn't safe and it wasn't kind, but I get really upset and then I don't know how to calm down. And that was so
mature.
So mature. And I was like, okay, I thought I taught you deep breathing, but we're going to come up with some new things. So now it's like punch a pillow, do this, do that. And then you can be in the place to calm your breathing. And then the breathing wasn't working because that child was too angry to breathe. So it was like, blow out the candles, dragon breath. So let's be angry dragons. And actually just coming up with ways to force them to breathe when they're in a bad mood or like pulling goofy, silly faces to pull them out of it. That was what they needed to self-regulate. And I've also just accepted it. They don't have a prefrontal cortex and they won't till they're like 25. So it's our job as mums to teach them to self-regulate. And it helps me. Yeah. Because kids push our buttons, but they're just children and we can forget that, you know?
Yeah. I think that is the key. You have to remember these are children. They are not intentionally ever trying to be malicious or whatever it is. And I think that is being a teacher as well. I'm with it all day, every day at school. So you have to have that patience. You have to help them to regulate themselves. And
do you find that easier with children at school than your own children? Can you?
It's when I get home, I have less patience because I've been at school all day with the children. But I've found a lot of transferable skills in both. So I just try and look at the children at school as my own children. I look at them and I think, however I would speak to my children at home, I'm not going to go to school and treat another person's child in a way that I wouldn't treat my own. So I'm very like nurturing of the children. I help them to regulate themselves. And I have this choice. I have this phrase at school where I say, what do we choose? And my class say excellence. And it's just always about giving them the choice. But it's when you're talking about the principles, like in my house, we're not particularly religious. We are very spiritual. But I think having those principles and values and morals and stuff that you are constantly coming back to is so important, because then children they have something that they can go back to and see, you know, like you've got your 3 phrases. We've got some stuff in our house as well. And it's like, are we being this? Are we being that? Rather than just, you're not doing the right thing. It's like letting them reflect, and then you can have those conversations. But anyway, we always say we're going to have a quick episode and we never do it. No, it's all right.
It's mainly me. I talk too much.
So let's talk work bit, fitness, health, all that kind of stuff. I love your stuff. It's helped me postpartum with both my kids. I think, my daughter is the same age as the twins. So when you were pregnant with the twins, I was pregnant and then I'd heard, so I was like, oh my gosh, we're going on the same journey. Not that you ever knew me, but it's fine. But it's helped me so much.
Stalking from afar. And look where we are.
I know, look where we are. I know, that's so cool. I never thought about that. Full cycle. But I don't even remember what my questions were.
What's it like for Mum Dem?
So what's it like for Mum Dem in your field in strength and fitness?
What is it like in health and fitness? To be honest, I think it's one of the most important industries, like not just because of everything that we've just discussed, how it can help to support us in other areas of our life, but because it's still at the very early stages of getting any attention. I mean, I think that there was like some research that came out recently. I think of all the funding that went into sports science, it was something like 6% or something that went into women's health. Like, you know, it's a tiny amount, and 9 out of 10 sports science studies are done by men on men, and we're not little men.
Unsurprising.
You know?
It's the same in every area of research.
Yeah.
So you would think that something like breast cancer would get a lot of funding. It doesn't. It gets 1/10 of the funding of, wait for it, erectile dysfunction and hair loss, male pattern balding, male hair loss. Blew my mind. And this was when I was doing my medical anthropology degree. So it was an MSc, so very in-depth, you're looking at studies. I was like, all the funding goes to stuff on men, and even drugs that are for women, that the focus is still men. Like there's so many drugs that are targeted to women, or it's like pink packaging, but the trials were done on men.
Yeah. Don't they say
like pain
about
relief
seat
stuff
belts or something, like seat belts in
tested
cars
on men? It's like they forgot that breasts exist.
We need seat belts like
how hard is it to just put some fake boobs on a crash test dummy? And only now are they just started. It's insane that we're 50% of the population.
Yeah.
And my eldest
Over
daughter doesn't
51.
get this. She's always like, sorry, why have there only been 3 female prime ministers? I don't get it. She's,
So exactly. So women's health, exactly as you're saying. And like, great, I think we're seeing like a real uprising, a real empowerment of women across the board, which is great. Women's health is just so instrumental. Like, I mean, we're birthing the future and raising the future. And I think that, looking after our bodies is so important. And what I'm learning now is how, I mean, you could just talk about this for hours, but how important it is what we teach our children, because actually by the time we're 20, there's so much of our body and our health is already pre-established at that point, and that can impact our menopause, it can impact pre and postnatal health, it can impact so many things. I think I was reading the other day, 98% of our bone density we establish in our 20s, and then as we get older we go through menopause, we can experience brittle bones, osteoporosis, whatever, and that's the level is set in our 20s. So we need to be going like into universities or high schools and making sure that they are doing impact exercises and that they're getting their calcium or whatever, really, really instilling the importance of health. And we prioritize so much in schools about academics and blah, 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 blah.
You never use.
No, and no one
about our bodies?
Don't need all that nonsense. But the body and like what you actually need, we don't prioritize that, and it's equally as important.
I love that.
If not more, you're stuck with your body for the rest of your life.
I love that you spoke about we need to be teaching our children, because that leads us on to our next question. First question is, can you move in with me, please? So that you can just
if you are going to educate my children, please, yes.
Maybe we need to talk about like, living together.
Can we have a Mum Dem commune?
Let's do it.
Can you imagine if all of the mums lived together? Like the husbands could come and
Husbands
they can visit.
I
They can have
literally said it last
conversations.
night. I had a friend over for dinner. And she came with her friend, and my husband was there, and I was like, I could use another woman in the house. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great.
I always talk about that
anytime.
I'm like,
We'll chat.
if we had another wife,
Sister wives.
I'll see this.
Don't get me started on the Mormons.
so we'll talk about that. But your final question is the final question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your final question is, what do we need to be teaching our children about strength and health and fitness?
I think the best thing we can do is firstly show them that it can be fun and it doesn't have to be a chore, and that starts with us. Like, if we're like, oh, I got to go for a run, or oh, I hate the gym. There's so many. Okay, a massive one is like, I'm not a runner. I hate running. And now, like, and my dad was an Olympic athlete. I find running really hard. I am not like a runner, but I am a runner because I get out there and I go for a run. It's not always pretty, and it's hard and it's not long and it's slow, but I get out there and it doesn't need to be running. There are so many different ways of moving your body. If I said earlier about anxiety and instinct, and there's so many instincts that our body has, and the human body was built to move. It's, nowadays that's almost like a luxury. It's like, oh, I carve out my movement time, but the body was made to move, and when we don't move it, on a hormonal level, there are things that affect our mental well-being. There are things that can affect, spine health, everything. So it really is just like a human instinct. And so if we can make it an everyday part of their life to be outside, especially now with like the rise of technology, I do not think that it's a coincidence that technology is exploding, and so is anxiety and all those other statistics. And actually, like all this, this good earth has everything that we need. It really has everything we need. So like all the boring little things. My mum used to always say to me, fresh air, oxygen and exercise, fresh air, water and exercise. And I was like, I don't know what she's on about.
Your mum was right.
She was right.
Mama knows best. Do you know what I mean? I was like, okay. And it sounds so simple, too simple to be real.
No, but
but
real.
it's real. And so I think like the best thing we can do for our children is just make it not an exception. Make it the norm, and make it fun.
It's such a good point.
I was just going to say, I spoke to your mum at your last event, and it's funny because her advice to me, because I was saying, how do I get, like, I've got 3 children, I'm a teacher, we do this, I do other projects. I'm like, how? How can I go and exercise all the time? Yeah. She was like, bring the children with you. I was like, how? She was like, set up a little activity course, put a cardboard box there, put a stick there, let them jump over it, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've tried it and it works. The children love it.
They love it.
Oh, and even like I did baby yoga with my twins, and now they would just randomly do downward facing dog. Yeah. I did it like maybe 5 or 6 sessions before they were running around too much and going to try to stroke the smaller babies. And there's 2 of them, so what can you do? Yeah. But what you said about it being instinctual, it's so true, because you watch a child and they're moving, they're flexing, they're fidgeting. We've learnt to sit still, and it's probably not that healthy.
I mean, I definitely haven't learnt to sit still. I'm like, I need to be doing something.
And even if, like, because I did that as well. I went through a huge period of time, especially when they're younger, where I exercised with them, or we were out in the garden and whatever, and that worked really well. And then it definitely got to a point where, like, I actually don't want you around. Yeah. When I'm doing this, like, into the zone. Yeah, I mean, I want you around. I love you, but not right. I mean, I love you always, but I don't need you around right now. And also, it became sort of like, you know, that whole thing of me having some time to do something for myself. Yes. But I think it's about encouraging them, whether it's a sports club after school or whether it's just like, let's go to the park after school. Like, you know, the other day, it was pitch black, and it was like 5 p.m. We live in England, so obviously it's pitch black by then. And my kids were like, I want to go to the park. I was like, okay. Yeah. And so we got like loads of torches, and off we went to the park in the dark. And it's just like doing, I'm not saying everyone do that.
No, I did this a week ago, and it's so much fun until someone else appears in the park. Then it's like Blair Witch Project.
That's like, get out of here.
It's fun when it's just you. It's like, oh, late night adventure. Then why is there a man in the park?
Yeah, see, I don't know about that. Even by myself, I'd be like, I'm just a bit scared.
I went with a group of girls from church, so it was chill. We had a lot of torches. Okay. There were enough adults.
You know, even if it's not that, you could be building a den at home. I think it's just about not just you know, on a device. And I don't have a problem with screens. Like, sometimes the best thing ever is like, put that on, I've got something to do. Like, you know, sometimes that's okay. And there's also loads of skills that they can learn with technology. Technology's not going anywhere, but we also need to make sure that is a part of their everyday life.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So amazing.
I know we just lied to you and said that was the last question. I have one more teeny tiny question. So what are you working on at the moment? I've read your book, Strong Like Mum. Actually, that's a lie. I am reading it because I put it on my bedside table, and then it somehow got under my bed, and then I lost it and I picked it up again. You know Mum Life, I've got like 72 books on the go.
But it's a really good book.
But it's wonderful. It's so practical, such great advice. I love everything about Strong Like Mum. Will there be a sequel?
Thank you. Thanks for asking. And yes, I'm hoping there's going to be a sequel. I've written parts of it, and it's now like in that pitching process where I'm working with my old publishers, seeing whether or not they like the idea of the book.
And if there are any commissioning editors listening, they can help your agent too, right?
Exactly. Plug it. And that one's actually about how we can manage a busy lifestyle without sacrificing our health.
Wow.
You know, based on sort of like...
Can I be to read?
Yeah. So that's kind of the premise of that book. And then there's a couple of other projects that I've just started working a little bit more in the TV world, which I love that type of work. I love live work and being with people. This type of thing.
You're
is like
so
a dream.
good at it.
Thank you so much.
We don't even need to edit this episode. Just throw it out.
I wish I'd recorded meeting you guys, because everything you've said to me has been so nice. I'm like, I'm just going to play that every morning. When I wake up.
Well, luckily you have this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple of really fun projects. Like, I always think the reality, you know, people can often see like my social media, or they see and they think everything is just super great and it's really high flying. The reality, and I'm sure you guys experience this with your own careers, but like there are huge ups and then it's an absolute wasteland. Mm-hmm. We're recording this in November, so November and December can typically be a lot quieter for fitness. But I also love what I do, which I think helps. And so I spend a lot of time, you know, trying to generate more opportunities, or, you know, connecting with other experts and learning from them, doing another course, learning from it. And I love it. So I think that helps. But there's a few exciting projects in the pipeline for next week. Yeah, not next week, next year. But next week, that's me manifesting. No, but next year, which is great.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we share them on our Instagram when they come to fruition. Very exciting.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and we have a little gift for you.
Oh, I love gifts. Oh my gosh. The whole thing?
open it up, have a look, have a smell. It's from our season sponsor, Leha Beauty.
I get the whole thing.
Look at that. It's all for you.
Oh my gosh, I love presents. I love, oh my gosh, this is so.
For your me time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not joking you. Sorry, and I know we don't have time to go through everything.
Oh, we have time.
Someone once bought me like a really nice bar of soap, and I never wanted to use it, and it sat on top of my toilet as a display until like it went off. This is like 10 years old. So then I was like, well, it's going moldy, so I'll scrape them out, and then we're going to use the soap. Anyway, this is amazing because I love fancy
Now you've
soap.
got a new one with no mold.
Oh my gosh, what a great sponsor
This
you guys
here-
have.
It's amazing.
This is amazing. You are in for treats.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I honestly.
And it will force you to slow down because it's solid at room temperature. So you have to, I did this yesterday. I was having a stressful morning and then I was like, I need to moisturize. And I did my first couch to 5K run. And I had an allergic reaction to my own sweat because I had not done any cardio for a long time. So I made it. I didn't get the final 2 runs in. I went home, had a quick shower. I was like, I don't have time. And then I was like, but I need to moisturize. And all I had available was the Eden oil. So I had to run it under the water.
Yep.
And it slowed me down. It took, I was like, let me breathe while I run it under the water to liquefy it so I can rub it on my body. Girl,
Honestly,
it forces you to slow down.
that is amazing. What a great gift. Thank you so much. I love that.
And it smells great too,
so
right?
much. Yeah, it does. It's amazing.
So enjoy. That's a little gift from Leha, season sponsor.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for coming on.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate it. And we've learned so much from you. And it's been
Thank you
fun.
for having me. Oh, I just got a whiff of the smell. It's really good.
So good.
Yeah,
Right?
that is really good.
Yeah, it's the cheaper rose. It's really nice. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening. This has been the Mum Dem Pod with
By the Mum Dem.
for the Mum Dem. We forgot our outro. I was literally going to say different order. I was going to say this has been the Mum Dem podcast with Rachel,
No, because we normally
Kamilah, and Amma. But
we normally do that at the beginning. We didn't say our name.
We didn't do
at the
it.
beginning.
That's
so.
you know our names
Made a
by
mess of it.
now.
You made a mess of it now.
Here we are. Here we are.
It's fine. And we'll leave it in because
We're
this
going to
is
leave
who
it
we
in.
are.
This is the reality is we usually have a little pre-meeting that's like 3 minutes while we shove some food in our mouths. But we were enjoying Mel's maple matcha from Bank Street. We're actually addicted. It's a problem. It's really good. You should try it.
But thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.